What's up, everybody? Hey, let's take a few minutes today to use Google Sheets in order to make a simple bar graph. We're looking at a data table, and this data table is for a lab I did about 1,000,000 years ago where we tested to see if color made any difference in how fast a popsicle melted. So this is the data that we gathered. So we set our popsicles out for 30 minutes, and at the end of that 30 minutes, we collected the melt liquid to see which color of popsicle produced the most melt liquid. And when we were done, we synthesized our 3 trials, and these are the averages that we got. So we said that red gave us, after 30 minutes of melting, 22.2 milliliters of liquid. The orange gave us 16.4 milliliters of melt liquid, and the purple gave us 29.5 milliliters of melt liquid. So what we want to do is we want to be able to take the data from this data table and put it into a nice, tidy little bar graph. And rather than doing it by hand, we're going to kind of go to the next level and just do it using Google Sheets. Now, for this lab, you guys, I want to make sure that you understand that we are going to use the average, because when you do just the single trial numbers, that's fine. But remember that you're going to end up sometimes with outliers. So like an obvious outlier is the trial 1 for the orange popsicle. It stands out because it's significantly less than the other 2 trials. We have this big range of 10.1. And compared to the ranges of my other 2 popsicles, this definitely sort of opens an eye, and we see this big outlier right here. The reason that we're going to graph the averages is by averaging those trials, it kind of smooths things out a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and average this data. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a Google Sheet. I'm going to go to my drive. I'm going to come over here to New. I'm going to come over here to where it says Google Sheets. And here's this nice, tidy little Google Sheet. Now, in order to make my graph, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and type in my 3 levels of my independent variable. So the things I changed, I had a red popsicle, I had an orange popsicle, I had a purple, spell purple right, P-U-R-P-L-E, popsicle. Now, the average amount of melt liquid for my red popsicle was 22.2 milliliters. Notice, you guys, that I'm not putting milliliters on here because when you put any sort of thing other than the number, it messes up the formatting. So just put the number in here, and we'll take care of figuring out all of the extra stuff here once we get the graph made. The average amount of melt liquid for my orange popsicle was 16.4 milliliters, and for purple, it was 29.5 milliliters. So now, in order to make a graph, what I'm going to do is I am going to click and highlight these 6 boxes, and then I'm going to come up to my toolbar up here. I don't see my graph toolbar up here, which means I'm going to have to go to my little snowman, my dot, and now I see this icon right here that says Insert Chart. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to click on that, and it's going to go to its default chart. And like I said, we want to do a bar graph for this data. So you'll notice as soon as I make my chart, this chart editor pops open. And it starts by in the Setup tab, which is right here. And so what we want to do is we want to go ahead and click on where it says Pie Chart, because what this is going to do, this is going to allow us to choose what chart type we want. So we're going to go ahead and use this nice little column chart right here, and we're going to click on that. And you can see what we have. We have, I would call, like a nice little bare bones graph. But there's many things on here that are missing that we have to go ahead and put in because we want to make this a really great graph with all of the stuff that we need for a good graph. So right now we have 3 bars, our red, our orange, our purple. So what we want to do right now is we need to title this graph, we need to label our axes, and we want to actually change the colors of each of our bars in order to match the colors that we see down here. So let's start by adding a title. So what we want to do next is we want to go over here to where it says Customize. So here's my chart. I'm up here to the upper right where it says Customize. And we want to start right here where it says Chart Axis Titles. We're going to click on that arrow. And right now it's set up for chart title, which is perfect because that's what we're going to do. So we're going to go ahead down here where it says Title Text, and we're going to click in. Now this particular lab was about the effect of the popsicle color on how fast it melted. So when we make that a title, it's always the effect of the independent variable on the dependent variable when you're doing this sort of investigation. So we're going to say the effect of popsicle color on melting. Okay, and as you can see, my title has now popped up on my graph. Now I want to go ahead and center this, so I'm going to scroll down a little bit. I'm going to come right here where it says title format. I'm going to click right here where it says alignment, and I'm going to choose center alignment. Now I would really like my chart to this text to be a little bit bigger, so I'm going to come over here to where it says title font size. Right now it just picks a default size. Let's go ahead and make that 20 and see how that looks. Oops, I probably have to highlight it. So I'm going to highlight it. I guess it's already on 20, so let's make it 30. That's too big. Let's make it 24. Oh, I love that. Okay, good. Now if we want to, we can change the color of the text. We're going to go ahead and make it a nice dark black so I can easily see it. And now it's time for us, so I would consider our title to be done. Now it's time for us to label both the x-axis and the y-axis. So we're going to come up here. Remember that part where it says chart title? This is a drop-down menu, so we're going to click on that, and we're going to do the horizontal axis first, which is our x-axis. And remember, when it comes to labeling a graph, the x-axis is going to be labeled with the independent variable. So in this case, the independent variable is the popsicle color. Okay, and you can see it pops up right down here at the bottom of my graph. And again, I would really like to make this a little bit bigger, so I'm going to come over here to my font size, and I'm going to choose 20. That looks great. Actually, that's probably a little big. Let's make it 18. Oh, I love that. All right, so 18. It's already nice and centered, which is where we want it. So now what we can go ahead and do is now it's time for us to label the y-axis. So I'm going to come back up here to my drop-down menu. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to jump down here to where it says vertical axis title. I'm going to click on that. And my x or my vertical or my y or my vertical axis is always my dependent variable. So for this particular lab, if we are looking at it, it says popsicle melt liquid collected after 30 minutes of melt time. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and use this as what we're going to label our y-axis. So we're going to say popsicle melt liquid. We're not going to deal with the popsicle melt collected. Yeah, we'll just say popsicle melt liquid. And we need to make sure, because this is our dependent variable, we want to make sure we put our unit of measure. And we used milliliters as our unit of measure. And we're going to go ahead and make this an 18 as well. And so you can see now that this has popped up. So far, you guys, my graph is shaping up very nicely. I have my title, I have my x-axis labeled, I have my y-axis labeled, and now I'm ready to kind of pretty up my my bars here. All right, so when it's time to change the color of a bar, you're going to want to double-click on it. So double-click right on the bar. Now, as you can see right now, all three of my bars have highlighted. You can see that blue line, that little tiny thin blue line. That's not what we want. We want to make sure that we can just get the single bar. So double click on it again, and as you can see right now, the only bar that's highlighted is the red bar. You can see that little line around the red bar, but you don't see it around the orange and the purple. Now what we can do, where it says format data point, we want to come down here to where it says fill color. Now this is my red box, so I want my box to match that. I'm going to click where it says auto. I'm going to choose red. Oh, that's nice. Okay. Now I'm going to come over here to orange, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to double click on it so you can see it's the only one that's highlighted. Go back to fill color. We're going to pick orange. And then finally we're going to come over here to my purple box. We're going to double click on that. You can see it's the only one that's highlighted. Come back over here to fill color. Choose purple. And there you go. So this, I would call this a really effective, really nice looking graph for this particular data table. We've chosen to graph the averages. Everything I need is on here. So I have, it's scaled well based on the data that I've input over here. I have the title, the effect of my independent variable popsicle color on my dependent variable, which is the melting. I've labeled my x-axis with the independent variable, the popsicle color. I've labeled my y-axis with the dependent variable, which is the popsicle melt liquid that we collected. We did that using milliliters because we used a graduated cylinder. I've distinguished each of my bars on my graph using a different color. And I would say if I were given points on that, that's a 10 out of 10, baby. All right. All right, now you know how to use Google Sheets to make a simple bar graph. All right, now that we have our nice tidy graph, let's work on getting this into our document. So when you do your lab report, one of the things that you're going to want to do is you're going to want in the section where it asks you to put in your graph, if you're doing this on a Google Doc, it's pretty straightforward. What you're going to do is you're going to click on your graph, and you're going to come up here, you're going to look for the three dots, otherwise known as the snowman. You're going to click on the snowman, and you're going to come down here to where it says copy the chart. Go back into your document and figure out the place where you want to put it so you can see how my cursor is right here. That means when I paste it in, it's going to go ahead and paste it in right here. So you have a couple of choices. You can right click and then you'll see the paste come in. You can use on your keyboard, you can use I think it's Command V. And then it will ask you if you want to link to a spreadsheet. You're going to say yes, but before we do that, you can also come up here and you can go to Edit, Paste. So either way that you do it, whether you right-click, whether you go to Edit, Paste, or whether you use Command V or Control, probably for the Chromebooks it's Control V. It's going to ask you to link to the spreadsheet, and go ahead and choose to do that, because that way, if you make any changes in the spreadsheet, they'll actually show up in the document in the graph that you have here in the document. So go ahead and hit paste, and there it is. Okay, and again, you guys, you can move that around if you need to. And like I said, if you make any changes in this document to your numbers up here, it means that you'll see those changes reflected in this graph, even though it's because you've linked it to the spreadsheet, it'll reflect any changes you make in the spreadsheet, which is pretty tight. So there you go. You know how to make a graph in Google Sheets, and you know how to get that graph from your Google Sheets into a document if you're turning in a lab report that's done digitally. Okay. All right. If you have any questions, let us know.